Welcome everybody back to our podcast live stream. We are having a discussion today with Jayati Goenka, who has her own namesake label. She uses a lot of hand block prints and embroidery in her collections. So welcome everybody, Nikita, Lime Lifer, Paula, Nunu, hey Ian, hey Green Fabric, hi Rebecca, hi Mali and James. So today we're going to talk about sustainable fashion, fashion entrepreneurship, building a brand, craftsmanship in India, and a few other topics. We're really excited about speaking to you today. Just waving at everybody. Hey Shapnakar. Hi Clay Batik. Hey Shilpa Madan. So we're just going to join Jayati here. Hi Kajal. Hi Tarun. Oh, all right. Okay, so Jayati is joining us now. Hey Jayati.
Hi, Jeremy.
How are you
sorry,
doing?
My camera is slightly, I think, busted. So yeah.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much for joining us. We are just going to do a quick introduction. I'm Jeremy from Studio Bagru, and we are from Jaipur and Bagru, India, in Rajasthan. And tonight we're joined by Jayati Goenka, who is a local designer here in Jaipur. We've known each other almost 10 years now, I think.
Yes, we have almost. It's been like a long journey.
Yeah. We're both in the space of handmade fabrics and textiles and printing.
Yes.
Jayati studied printing, I think. Maybe you can give a little introduction about your journey here.
Yes. So I have done my fashion from Pole, and I have started my journey as a fashion intern, and then I worked about a year in Jaipur as an export house to learn the craft of block printing with the craftsmen. And then it's been around about 7 years that I have been working with Shivam. So Shivam is a apparel manufacturing textile export house, which was established by my father and by my late mother. Here we provide the services of co-designing and sourcing solutions to many international as well as Indian upcoming ethical brands, global brands. And since then I have been working in Shivam, and I wanted to contribute in terms of to create an ethical brand where we can talk about, where we are talking about the natural dyes, the handcrafts. So hence I started my brand Jayati Goenka, which stands for basically 3 things. That is the local craft, the local craftsmanship, the mindful value details, and an ethical manufacturing. So.
Mm-hmm. So why is yeah, totally. Thank you. So to start a discussion, I just wanted to ask you a few questions about the nature of the industry and the way that we actually create products here. So why is there a need for slow, kind of minimalistic fashion? during these new age, and why natural dyes and handicrafts?
I think journey for the inclination, I think, for the natural dyes is basically because let's say the chemical dyes or the dyes that are being used in the fast fashion industry, they shred a lot of.
Welcome everybody back to our.
I think that is not possible or it can't be done. So that's when I discovered Bagru. I got introduced to the craft of hand block printing of Bagru, which is done slowly. It's not something that just happens like, you're printing or you're creating 100 meters of fabric overnight. It takes time, and I mean, the process.
When we think about the actual time that it takes to create 1 meter of fabric, and when we talk about the Bagru processes, it's almost a week-long timeline that we're looking at, from the prepping of the fabric, the scouring of the fabric, the mordant dye, printing, washing, boiling, and then if we do another round with the dabu printing and the resists or the discharge, it's quite a long process.
It's a very extensive and a very labor-intensive process, because here, if you also see the washing that they do, that is all done by hands. They don't have the machines, or they don't use the machines. Even if they do, they don't use the machines because it just kind of hampers the craft and the look of the textiles, because they need that imperfections that are part of the story. So
I mean, that's an interesting point, because machines only were added to the equation in the last 150, 200 years, when we started to see new devices in each point of the supply chain. So the fibers themselves, there's three main natural fibers. We have cotton, linen, and silk. So cotton and linen both coming from a plant, and silk coming from silkworm. As you look at the production, first we have to turn the fiber into a yarn or a thread, and then that will be turned into a woven fabric. So there's many steps between the raw material and the fabric, actually.
So I think it's a very, very extensive process in Bagru, and the prints and the printing that they do is with mud. So there you get a typical and a very definite kind of print. You wouldn't get a very fine, like the Sanganeri prints. I would say that they are fine because they also then use chemicals there. Here, everything is done with natural dyes. It's done with mud. So I think that was one of the major reasons which kind of drew me to Bagru. And I think also the smell of the fabric, they just smell different.
Yes.
You can identify.
Especially the fermented inks, Chevy. There's a very distinct smell in the Harda, Myra Bowen.
Yes, totally. Like once you get the fabrics done and once the textiles are ready, I think they just feel different. I think even if you wear them, you'll feel different wearing them.
Absolutely. So for those of you that are just joining us, we're in discussion with Jayati Goenka. And so we have another question from the viewers here.
Yes.
Which is, how do you plan for one of your collections as like a fashion brand? And is it a seasonal thing? And if it's a seasonal or like collection-wise, how do you go about planning for that?
So it took time to kind of identify my own brand signature style. That was in itself was a long journey for me, because I had worked always in export houses, and so to kind of identify your own design distinctive style was a long journey. Having said that, we work on a seasonless collection because we want to keep it sustainable. We don't want our collections to be dictated by season, that this is a high summer collection or this is a winter collection. So we stick to a certain natural timeless color palette that is of beige that we get from Hoda, which is again, it has medicinal properties too. Even my grandmother, she used to consume it for like her knees and her joints. So from Hoda we get a nice beige, soft beige color, and then we have cassis. So cassis is again used in kashish bhasma, is basically used again in Ayurveda, which gives a nice grey color, and you can mix it again like
a mineral. Kashish is copper sulfate, or the
not clear.
Kashish dye.
Yeah.
The makeup of this one.
Yes. Like
it's copper sulfate, or.
Yes, but then they actually consume it. Like it's used in Ayurveda. This is like a kashish bhasma that they use it for, I think, liver, and it was used in olden days. I think it's still used. So that's one thing for grey, and then of course the indigo plant. That's
heavily surrounding these natural components and these colorways made from the earth.
Yes, that's our, I think, logo. Like that's a tagline also, that it's all made from earth.
And you also have a pretty big following in Japan. Can you maybe talk to some people about Japanese design, and maybe how there's some similarities, where they also have some appreciation for this craftsmanship and their history of craft?
So Jeremy, like our design is somewhere rooted in Japanese simplicity and a Japanese design sensibility, as well Japanese minimalism.
Can you hear me?
Hear me.
Hello? Jayati, are you there? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think I'm not sure if you can hear me. There was like this bad network.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, here we go. Yes, perfect. All right, so
yes, so I was.
We were I think you were talking about the Japanese. Yes.
Huh? Yes, I was speaking. So I was saying that somewhere we are rooted in Japanese design sensibility and Japanese simplicity. So we do look up to how Japanese kind of, I think they have this whole concept where they like to work with what they have, and they are using, like they're making the most of whatever they have, whatever resources they have. They do not kind of, waste any
very local economy.
And I think
I just said, like, it's a very local oriented mind. What they have with them.
Yes.
Uh-huh. We're having maybe a little technical difficulties here.
I think there's been like a really bad network patch.
Oh no, you're coming through perfectly. That's good.
Oh, you were saying something. I think you were adding something to it.
Oh, no, just why don't we welcome everybody again here who's just tuning in. We're with Jayati, Goenka, and we're discussing the aspects of sustainable fashion and fashion entrepreneurship and building a brand. So another point maybe we can just touch on is how the industry is changing due to this global event that we're all experiencing.
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was saying that now, after this global event, how is this industry going to change?
I think we are coming from a space of somewhere a sense of loss, but I think we have also used this time to kind of build and make ourselves aware and spend more time with ourselves. So even though, let's say, we are coming from a space of boredom and a sense of loss in terms of because of the economical setback that has happened to the countries globally. So, but at the same time, now we are aware of our we are aware, we are reading, we are spending time with ourselves and our family. I think we would be more cautious. I would like to believe that in terms of we would be more cautious when we are consuming, when we are going out. But we would want to experience, we would want to travel, we would want to, buy things. We would like to consume, have different experiences. It's not like we would stop that. But I think we would be very cautious now after this, like what has happened and how we are spending. How we would like to spend cautiously. We would like to invest in something good rather than having something briefly or experiencing a moment briefly. I think we would like to experience a moment or a product more profoundly, more intensely, as compared to just having an impulsive moment or a buy.
I think so too. I think it's really interesting how we've all found ourselves cooped up kind of in our own space and left to reevaluate how we interact with the world around us. And so a lot of people are realizing what they spend on, how they allocate their time, what they find important, and the relationships that they are in. And ultimately, these relationships and emotions that we have is what defines us. So it kind of makes people take a step back and understand their habits. And so out of these habits and what's going to last is a sense of kind of resiliency in my mind. So resiliency is something that we can all learn. And it's a collection of skills, exercise, healthy diet, staying connected, being kind. Things like this are things that people, I think, are starting to notice about themselves. And so
I think because of this, somewhere we have been kind of forced to practice a slow lifestyles, which we weren't earlier, maybe. I think we have been forced to consume the resources that we have in a very frugal and a very mindful way
and that's a humanistic trait. Totally. I think if we look historically, we are creatures of sustenance. We want to make sure that we survive. And when it comes down to things, we only need a few things to make us happy. And so what there has been in the last 150 years is this overconsumption beyond a limit. And people are finally starting to reconnect with our kind of roots, I guess you could say.
I think we are spending time with the families as well, which probably we weren't as much as people should have had been. I think that's the reason why we are able to connect with our roots, who we are, what we should be doing, what we should be looking at. I think those are the things that matter and which eventually lead to creating us a good lifestyle.
Totally. We have a couple questions here from some viewers. Stylist Anchal is asking is there a limitation in color palettes in natural dyeing? And is it possible to mass produce with organic dyeing?
Well, there are certain limitations in natural dyes, but if you do experiment, there are many other the basic colors that there are is like Herda is there, which gives you a beige, gray is there, indigo is there. But then if you look at the vegetables like onion peels and even the flowers, I think they give you really some nice colors out there, and they give you really nice pastels pink and blush pink. So there are other possible colors, but there are certain limitations because of the whole process and the number of hands that are involved in creating of those colors.
Very true. And actually, all over the world, no matter where you are, pretty much, you can look and research the different plants that were historically used for dyeing. Every civilization on Earth had a system for this. Maybe not Antarctica, but most other places, there is something that you can find locally that you have available to do this dyeing.
And I think each locality, each different geographical place would give a different kind of a tint or a hue, which in itself would be nice to look at.
Yes, totally.
Like
so here's another question. Does a versatile color palette, not very plasticity appeal, but has a earth? Is it possible to have a versatile color palette that's not earthy? So do you think that, like, what influence maybe the earthy color palette has?
Like, what influence does a earthy color palette has?
Yeah.
Like, influence on what?
I guess what they're saying maybe is, like, right now, are people moving towards a earthy color palette? Is that what is kind of a trending, or maybe what people should focus on, these earthy colors?
No, I don't think it's something that's not in the case of natural dyes. It's not something that is trend based. It's something that is what you get if you are doing this process. But if we are speaking of, I think, trends here, I think the colors is not something to do. I think not something to do with trend. I think they're just something
I think that they're saying that this wasn't the question, so we'll move on then. Sorry about that. So, what changed? So, I have another question here from one of the viewers. What changes would you like to see in the industry?
I think in the coming time, and with seeing what we are seeing right now and experiencing what we are experiencing, I would want, as a designer, as a consumer, as a maker, to see some sort of change in our I think the way we think, the way we consume. I think
consumer
that is
mindset.
Very much. Yes, I think that's very, very important right now, because my fear is, as a maker and even as a designer right now, is that in the coming times, and because what we are going through economically, financially, I think discounts is something that I'm fearing the most right now, because that is something and that is, discounts are being requested as a promotional event or as a promotional activity. I think that's all the more disgracing to what we are doing, because we are putting in a lot of effort here.
I think that also comes back to this whole fashion revolution movement that started in 2014.
Yes.
Which was in response to the Rana Plaza disaster in Bangladesh, which killed and injured thousands of garment factory workers. We're just moving out of the fashion revolution week last week, and it's an important subject for us all to consider, which is that this extreme consumerism has led to the debilitation and overconsumption of natural resources, of human capital, and of society as we know it. And so, speaking with Jayati, who's someone that really works with these hand-made and craft industries. It's interesting to talk about after this coronavirus, how the consumer will really start to think about their purchasing habits.
Because what I'm finding appalling is like around the world, in the news, on Instagram, on all the social media channels, in our friend circle, we are speaking of what we are going through. Like everybody is going through individually at their own levels, and at the same time, and we are speaking what Fashion Revolution is doing. They're helping brands like us voice out their beliefs, which we were not able to, as much as we were not able to reach out to so many more people globally. I think that, but at the same time, in the same industry with the same set of people, there are still these people who ask for these kind of, I think I just find it very inhuman. Like it's inhuman. I find it completely inhuman, because you can't. Of course we have to put price tags to what we are creating, but we can't just, put a discount tag on it.
Well, I think that's also part of the equilibrium and the way that the so-called invisible hand of the market, Thomas Friedman, comes together when people start to realize that what they have a limited amount of money, and how they should spend that and what it's going to be valued for themselves is going to change. Because before it was a point where it was very easy to in the West consume and have new clothing, new food, new travel. That's part of globalization, and now people are going to realize. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying like globalization has been completely killed. It's been like disrupted with this what it right now has happened. Like, so I think the freedom to kind of go out, travel, to eat, to shop, I think all of that that's just gone. So we would like to do all of it, but I think we should be. I'm just looking at a consumer mindset where we are mindful when we are consuming. I think we shouldn't just blow it all.
Agreed, totally. And that's something that is really, I kind of part of the outlook here is figuring out how we come out of this. And what I've been speaking of with a lot of my friends in the industry is making sure that there's resources ready for the people that want to change their habits, and also resources ready for the makers that are actually at the forefront of this, we can say, revival or renaissance of handmade and handcrafted.
Mm-hmm. So I think there also, Jeremy, I think it's important how we are looking at all of this, because at the end of the day, what we were speaking the other day as well, that it's a luxury to be able to create something. Not everybody can afford to create. I think you need to have the resources, both, I think, financially, mentally, emotionally. You need to have that kind of headspace, bandwidth to be able to create something. You need a team to create it with. And then to be able to afford to buy it, that's a different category altogether.
Totally. Yes.
So I think it's an investment for both the sides. It's not just an investment for the consumer who is just buying that piece. I think it's a hell lot of investment for the maker, because that person is taking a lot of risk here right now. If I speak even as a manufacturer, I think we are just paying our team because we want to keep them with us. We have nurtured them over time. I think we just want to keep them, even though we are not able to do anything. We are not able to go to the offices. We are not able to make anything. But we are nurturing them. This is an investment, and we are taking a risk here. So I think maybe
I think something that you mentioned to me was about the luxury of making and the luxury of consuming.
Yes, I think that is what it is. And if the sustainable, I think creating sustainable fashion in itself is a big luxury. Hence, as a maker, as a designer, it's a duty to consume that. Even if I'm creating something, I am consuming certain resources to create something. I am consuming those dyes, I'm consuming those fabrics, I'm consuming certain amount of labor. Although I am paying for that, but I am consuming that. Hence, I'm responsible in what I am responsible towards, like what I'm doing. And if now that product is just going to get hanged on some rack at the end of the day, and people are just going to probably see the tag, what it says. So I think these kind of stories, the story behind this whole making of it and what really goes into it, it needs to be kind of told. It needs to be narrated properly.
Absolutely.
Wised out. I think everybody.
And that's also part of how people understand about how much time and effort goes into making these pieces of, really truly wearable art.
Yes, because even if it's, sometimes I think one of these odd days I was just thinking the craftsmen that we are working with, even you are working with, and I think most of them are sometimes they're like twice my age, and they have like put in their lives to sort of export these skills. They have put in their complete lives. They just know this craft and they are like master of it. They don't know anything else. They don't know how to read it right. They don't know how to communicate. They just know this craft, and that is their way of communication to the people. So I think it's our duty, if we have certain luxuries, if we have certain privileges, I think it's our duty to make the people know about it, make them globally available in a very ethical, fair way, without exploiting anybody in the whole process.
Right, which is kind of hard now because all of these large companies that have $1 million budgets for their advertising and marketing have misled. They've misled the general consumer of these type of products: clothing, home textiles, accessories, and now there's a new narrative about how these things should be consumed and where they're coming from. There was a new narrative. So that's what's happened over the last 50 years. And now we're at this impasse, this really change where people are starting to realize, okay, if I look now at my parents' generation, if they bought something, they would have it the rest of their lives. They would mend it if it was ripped or torn or broken, and they would value it in a completely different way than the way I do going out to Target or Walmart or Primark, any of these big box apparel companies.
I agree to that. Well, that's been the case for most of our generation, but I would like to believe that we are becoming much more aware. In fact, I would like to add, I think the upcoming generation, since they were exposed to so much more, like at a much early age, like I would say I started using Instagram or Facebook at much later stage of my life, whereas I feel like the younger ones, they are just like they have
the 21st century hasn't been easy.
Yes, they already have they already had the access to everything, so I think they know it all very soon. So they also know somewhere that the value of it, they know how to value it. Like they know what can be valued. This is to value and this is not to value. I think they are smart in their own choices somewhere.
Right. They've had enough. Maybe they can see through. They can see through these fake campaigns, this fake mindset.
Yes.
This plastic. And plastic is actually an interesting analogy because plastic is something that we, in fashion and textiles, we talk about DuPont. which invented spandex and all these nylon and different man-made fibers, MMF. And that's also what kind of shifted a lot of the consumer mindset, wearing something that's comfortable, wearing something that, doesn't need to be washed. But this was also some would say it's strong to say brainwashing, but it was a way to change the consumer mindset so they would purchase more of these materials that were cheaper to make and easier for the corporation to manage. When we talk about craft fibers and craft fabrics, they are very personal and centered around geography. Every place that spins a fiber spins it a different way, and they weave it into a different design. And so that takes us back, as we have this conundrum in the last 100 or 50 years between machine-made versus handmade, and overconsumption versus local consumption.
Yeah.
So it really is all coming together now, I think, in this 2020 world we're living in.
Yes, and I don't think we should put these categories, put them against each other, because I don't think it'll be kind of, fair.
Ultimately, that it's a technology versus man-made.
So here I like to add something. So this is something that I had done.
Well, we have one question here. Is this a correct time to start something in sustainable upcycle fashion business? I mean, post-lockdown period. Could you talk about that a little? I would love to talk about that. I'll just shape it here. So upcycling means that you use something that's already been created to create something else. At Studio Bagru, we've had these upcycling workshops where you bring secondhand or recycled clothing or fabric and you upstyle it with block print, and you make it into something else with a design on it, embellish it, which is a really beautiful thing. Maybe, Jayati, you could talk a little bit about the sustainable aspect of business.
I think it could be a right moment, maybe a little more later than the lockdown. Maybe once we have started resuming things are a little bit looking better. There's some more sunshine happening somewhere. But definitely, yes, I think we should be upcycling right now, because that is what we need at the moment, especially the garments. All of us have huge inventories of garments. At home we have lots of garments that we are not using anymore, that we just don't want to wear anymore, probably, I don't know, due to bizarre reasons sometimes. So I think if we can so if we can just kind of,
because we have too many choices.
So yes, I think we should look at them. We should look at them in a way where we can give time to them, where we can do something about them. And I feel like I think the new age labels, that's what they are focused on about, like how to kind of revive and redesign what we have rather than just kind of starting from scratch, because you don't need to, you already have everything out there. We just need to kind of put things together properly
There's no need to make more waste. We can use the raw material that's already been created, whether it's secondhand or dead stock, stored. There's a lot of repositories of fabric. So
and then there's already, I think, more than raw materials. We already have some of the things that they're done, and they just need some sort of design intervention. They need some sort of design input there. So if we can do that, if we can give that little extra attention to that textile or a garment or a product or whatever that is, I think that would be more than enough. That's all we need. Just a little extra care.
Everyone has that role in this new economy to promote the brands that are truly doing a sustainable and honest business. We should all try to promote those people that have the model right, and we should equally make sure that people are held accountable for not following a sustainable model.
I think definitely, and I think, and I'm like, applaud to you. That's what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I've always, my mentors, my professors in college, they first taught me about social enterprise, whatever that means. I still have my own definition of that. But when it comes to sustainability, social enterprise, meaning the community, is a point of view that must be considered when making decisions and strategies for the outcome of different projects and business streams. So,
I think because if you are doing that, I think eventually, even as an individual, you are getting to learn a lot. I think you are going to take more from that as compared to...
Which is like when it comes to social entrepreneurship or community entrepreneurship, you have to have that perspective of local needs. And that's something that also connects with craft, because craft and craftsmanship and master craftsmanship has always been centered around a specific place and process. When we think about block printing, it is a beautiful craft that has a wide range. And then the different processes, everywhere you go across India, they all do block printing a little bit differently with the colors or the preparation, the washing, the motif.
And I think that's what I was trying to say, like I think even if the national dyes, if you're trying at home or wherever, I think it's going to be different. Like, let's say Japanese indigo creates a different kind of indigo color as to what we get here from the indigo that we are doing in Bagru or elsewhere in parts of India. So I think that's there.
Yes. So someone's asking about where to source natural dyes. There's a lot of great places. I think if you do a quick Google search of natural dyes and then whatever location you're in, you'll be able to find a lot of resources. I think both Jayati and my website has some names of different ingredients that are used in the production of our products. So you can also check out Jayati's website and our Studio Bagru website.
Yes, and you can also check out our Instagram, I think, for more details to stay updated.
Yeah, definitely. We'll leave a link to that in the description. So this has really been a great, very interesting, enlightening conversation with you, Jayati.
Yes, it was nice, I think, Jeremy. I think. Thank you for just calling me and having this chat.
Yeah.
I wish my camera was not busted, that's all.
Oh, it's all right. So if anybody has any more questions or they'd like to learn more about natural dyes or fashion, you can feel free to reach out to myself at Studio Bagru or Jayati at Jayati Goenka Clothing. You'll be able to find a link there in the description. Otherwise, have a great night. Thanks, Jayati, for joining us.